Yes, we are.
When you leave it for Debbie and then move it after,
No, he's
She's
moving it
still open.
closer to me. She's
oh, I'm sorry.
because he's never hear me.
I thought it was going to
I don't know
meet
who's-
that.
Last time I did this, it worked better.
Mine.
Oh, it's been
Forgot
sitting
it.
for a while.
Okay.
Yeah, I forgot it. I finally realized it's here.
Okay, good evening, everyone. I would like to call our financial plan hearing to order at 7 o'clock. And I guess it is a little bit different. If you are attending virtually, I would like to welcome you this evening for the hearing and presentation of our 2021 financial plan. We are also live streaming this financial plan hearing, so it is available for all. As we all know, we are living in different times for now because of COVID-19 pandemic in Canada and around the world. This year will continue to bring challenges as we continue to work with the changes set forth by the province to try and keep everyone healthy and safe and adjust to a new normal. Throughout the year, Council will continue to focus on our essential services as the safety of our residents, community, and our employees continues to be a priority. As you can see, we are social distance in our council chamber and around the council table. For this evening, all members of council are present, and we also have some staff with us this evening. We have our CAO, Deepak Joshi, Heather Stanek, Manager of Administration and Development, our Finance Officer, Shannon Plushke, and Brett Paskrug, our Communications Officer. If you have any questions, we would be more than happy to answer them. If someone does log in while the hearing is going on, I will ask at the end of the presentations if there is anybody who does want to speak. As you are aware, Council has continued to work on our 4-year strategic plan, focusing on areas within our budget that were identified as needing attention. Our administration will continue to work to deliver the projects that Council has asked to be moved forward, some of which have been in the works for some time. We have tried to allocate more funds where required and will continue to work toward achieving our goals. Council is also looking to the future at new projects while at the same time following our current strategic plan. This year, with the current situation and so many unknowns at this time, administration has made provisions to review and make necessary changes to keep our budget in line. For this evening's public hearing, our CAO will review the PowerPoint presentation and the financial plan for 2021. If you have registered to speak or have addressed or sent in a letter, these will be addressed at the conclusion of the presentation. At this time, I will ask our CAO, Deepak Joshi, to go through our 2021 financial plan presentation.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Today we're introducing the financial plan for 2021. We are presenting a financial plan that has been developed through collaboration with administration and council. It addresses revenues, expenditures, projects being put forward, and most importantly, what are the priorities for the municipality. The financial plan helps in taking the municipality in a direction that will enable it to manage expected growth, infrastructure, and requests for services while keeping the tax rate sustainable and protecting the environment. The financial plan also takes into consideration the unexpected challenges the municipality may face due to uncertain times we are presently encountering. The financial plan also supports strategic planning completed in 2019 and the goals established in that plan. The next several slides will feature the strategic plan and the goals set by council. Our vision is a municipality that is committed to sustainable growth, which means growth that is repeatable, ethical, and responsible to and for current and future communities. It means future development needs to contribute positively to the environment, social structure, and financial health of the RM. It means being more efficient and maximizing our current infrastructure. To succeed, we need to continue to grow and attract young families. To do this, we need to provide the amenities and services people are seeking when deciding to purchase or build a home. We need to create an environment that can offer the type of housing diversity that can help our youth stay in the community and allow our citizens to age in their home community. The RM of St. Clements has established a vision that helps to guide the administration, taking into consideration the values of the municipality as established through collaboration between council and the administration. One constant is that change is happening in our current environment, and we are fortunate to be a growing municipality. As growth is managed and facilitated, it can be an important contributor to sustainable tax levels for citizens of the municipality. We also have various challenges and demands for increased service levels and increased responsibilities placed on the RM by provincial legislation. In these unprecedented times, it has become clear that the municipality has to be prepared for unknown and sometimes difficult external influences on finances, resources, and service levels. Our responsibility is to develop strategies and actions to minimize the impact of these influences in order to provide a level of predictability for our ratepayers. Priorities for service delivery have been communicated through the strategic plan by creating goals and actions which the budget supports. In addition, priorities for external influences have been identified. Climate change and its impact to our existing drainage network, along with our ability to respond to unanticipated events, needs to be addressed. An example would be the late fall storms of 2019 or the COVID-related expenses. As well, it is understood that much of the infrastructure of roads and buildings in the RM were built over 50 years ago, and fixing or replacing these assets will be an expensive endeavor. Also, council and the administration are very aware of the importance of keeping taxation reasonable in the long term. Therefore, opportunities need to be explored to manage expenses and revenue growth through economic development. Rural municipalities are typically large. St. Clements is one of those. It is 728 kilometers. That's a lot of road and drainage to manage. We have been working towards this goal for many years. In today's world, proper drainage projects require approval from the province. The province generally requires good survey data and hydrology studies. We now have the staff on hand as civil engineer technologists employed by the RM who provide the needed information for approving to the approving provincial authorities. In order to reduce the overland flood risks of priority areas, a capital project was identified to address the drainage works. It is expected that all priority projects identified will be completed this year, and funds have been allocated to ongoing operating accounts to address drainage on ongoing work plan as the RM works on priority drains and complete further drainage studies. Maintenance and management of gravel roads through an improved tender specification for gravel resulted in money saving and reducing fines and sloppy roads, providing a better quality of gravel in the RM. In 2020, the RM identified several major road projects that were needed in order to continue to provide quality infrastructure through proper asset management. The projects have been completed using infrastructure reserves created through the previous financial planning processes. Our financial plan continues to support the $4 million commitment in funding for hard surface roads maintenance over the 4-year term of council. Bringing additional sewer capacity to the Red River corridor is important for the future of the RM, with significant grants that were received in 2020, especially the $2.7 million grant from the province's climate resiliency grant towards the Guns Creek diversion, has allowed the RM to review and refocus our capital projects. This allowed the RM to repurpose approximately $4.3 million in previous borrowing authority to be directed to strategic infrastructure priorities. Accordingly, the new borrowing has been approved for the Henderson wastewater project for $3.5 million and the water softener project for $2 million, along with an additional $2 million grant from Manitoba Water Services Board for a total of $4 million for the water treatment plant and water softening project. This year, we're continuing to contract our road mowing as well, which has shown success in 2020. In 2021, the RM is again investing in major road projects, including reconstructing a major road following a severe weather event in October of 2019. The projects will be completed utilizing funding from infrastructure reserves and funding available through provincial disaster financial assistance. An asset management program is also being worked on for the municipality in order to be eligible for the gas tax funding. We expect a full plan to be developed over the next couple of years. This process will allow us to review all infrastructure and determine the most cost-effective methods in lowering the life cycle of all assets. As to the strategic plan, despite various financial challenges facing municipalities, it is important that we keep costs affordable in our community. St. Clements is among the lowest tax rates of the neighboring municipalities and is committed to maintaining that. This table shows our 2021 mill rate is among the lowest when compared to our neighbors. The mill rate is not always the best indicator when comparing taxes between municipalities. Numerous other factors must be considered. The average cost of homes, lot sizes, density, the amount of commercial and industrial assessment, along with service levels, will all impact the level of taxation. The per dwelling comparison addresses some of these challenges, but it does not offer a clear picture. Some of the listed municipalities have substantial commercial and industrial properties which impact the revenue for the RM. To keep costs affordable, Council has committed to limit property tax increases at 2% for this year. This is a challenge as revenues from other sources such as the province have been frozen at 2017 levels, or in case of road grants reduced by 40%. If inflation persists, or if we even go into a recession as a result of COVID-19 pandemic, there will be considerable pressure on the municipal resources and service delivery. The cost of fuel, hydro, and wages continue to rise regardless of provincial freezes. This will help to achieve a goal of affordability while keeping up with the current demands. We need to consider other revenue opportunities, such as implementing user fees and improving the efficiency of solid waste collection and treatment. To keep taxes under control in the long term, we need to attract new residents and new developments. As the mill rate for the school boards have an impact on the total tax bill for our ratepayers, it is encouraging that the school boards have reduced their mill rates, which in turn has had a positive impact on the total tax burden for our ratepayers. All ratepayers in the RM this year will see a reduction in taxes as compared to last year. In addition, this year the province of Manitoba has made a commitment to reducing school taxes by 25% with an additional 25% in 2022. The 25% refund in 2021 from the province will be sent out to taxpayers by check directly from the province. This will not change the bill sent out to our ratepayers, but after applying the discount check against the taxes, we expect all ratepayers will see a reduction in overall tax bill. Along with this, we have to keep costs affordable for our ratepayers, which requires management of expenses, such as fiscal and cash flow management, which has allowed the RM to reduce its reliance on utilizing the operating line of credit. In 2020, the RM worked to eliminate interest expenses related to utilizing the line of credit. This chart below shows the continued progress in reducing operating costs related to short-term line of credit borrowing, with continued progress in cash balance stabilization. As you can see, Council, in the last 3 years, Council has made a significant gain, especially in the last 2 years, as to being above the baseline and not relying on short-term borrowing in order to get through the year. Along with this, to keep in line with the strategic plan as to goal number 3, target is sustainable growth. Good planning is essential to providing services at reasonable cost for generations to come. A poorly planned development could result in additional maintenance expenses without the property tax revenue to support these costs. Good planning can identify opportunities to increase housing options and lead to an expansion of our tax base. Economic development is important, as well as in order to find ways to make investments in St. Clements attractive. This could mean an expansion of industrial or commercial lots or targeted rezoning efforts. The administration has engaged planning consultants to review some complex subdivisions, create concept plans, and pass text amendments for the zoning bylaw. The Henderson Sewer design is complete, and marketing of the Sunset Bay Estates for new housing has begun. We will continue to identify marketable lots and land parcels with a review of real estate market and improved liaison with developers at early stages. The RM continues to promote lands for conservation subdivision. As to goal number 4, for anticipating future needs and amenities and services, we need to evolve our amenities and services to prepare our future needs of our changing communities. This is important to retain the grow our population. We will be undertaking we undertook a recreation needs assessment to establish gaps in the delivery of quality of life infrastructure and programming. This has resulted in a planned increase of pathways for walking, biking, and in 2021, $260,000 has been allocated, along with grant applications to leverage our investments. We are very excited about the Activity Center project on 10-acre parcel of land on Donald Road. This year, we will have completion of the groundworks and a park on the site. The plan includes walking track, water feature, and areas for program space. The administration has also increased fitness programs for adults through partners like Corpus Christi Church for use for use of the hall for programs, and will also continue to examine and utilize these types of partnerships for future delivery programs in order to broaden the opportunities within the community. This year we've also hired.
I'm trying to let the mic in, so I'm trying to get it shut off here. Hold on a second.
Okay, hang on, I'll let the people in.
You're gonna let him in?
Yes. Okay, so can you turn your mic off?
I'm trying to get it up. Okay.
Okay, so going on to goal number 4, we are very excited with the Activity Center. As I mentioned, the administration has increased fitness programs, as I mentioned, and the administration will be utilizing the needs assessment that was completed last year to direct also future programs and services identified through the public consultations. As well, the future recreation master plan for the RM will be aided by the results from this needs assessment. Oops. Unlike some of the neighboring municipalities, St. Clements can boast a range of exceptional four-season outdoor recreational opportunities, and they are increasingly getting noticed. Whether it's more people ice fishing or Travel Manitoba's work to brand East Beaches as a destination, there is a unique opportunity for St. Clements to build on this momentum. Positive interest in their recreational amenities can be a source of pride for residents and showcase the municipality for future residents, increasing the potential for future economic spin-offs. Excuse me. The RM has worked collaboratively to form a tourism marketing committee of Beaches of 59 for the East Beaches, and we will continue to promote Grand Marais and the beaches as a four-season tourism destination. Our collaborative work with other municipalities and Grand Beach Provincial Park have helped to promote destination tourism in the East Beaches area. The RM will continue to focus on these services, as well as continuing with funding summer season washrooms at the 4 beach locations. We will continue to focus on partnerships with the school divisions and existing organizations such as the ESRA and the GMRA, East Selkirk Recreation Association and the Grand Marais Recreation Association, as well as the Grand Marais Community Club. And moving on to our strategic plan goal number 5 for the recreation destination, sorry. Moving on to our values. The RM of St. Clements is committed to values of communication and openness, collaboration and respect, and diversity. And through this, through public consultation in order to provide transparent government services to all ratepayers. The municipality has deployed and will continue to expand on methods to connect with the community. The RM has recently introduced the St. Clements Connect, a communication system that allows the municipality to send important messages. And last year we expanded on this program so that we could also use it to send out messages in case of major emergencies that are automated, such as tornadoes or weather events, other major weather events. We continue to communicate also important information through a variety of other communication mediums. Information such as COVID-19 pandemic notices and links to important information from provincial and federal sources is available on our website and on the municipality's Facebook page, as well as on our Twitter. The RM continues to commit to open, transparent government by sharing information on services that would be of interest to the ratepayers. The budget open house was not done again this year due to the pandemic, but the commitment is still there. And a financial plan outline was provided along with a financial plan this year for our ratepayers to further explain in light of not having the financial plan open house. In order to provide this information to citizens of the RM, we are looking at ways that would be utilizing social media and newsletters, and we'll continue to explore other mediums that we can use to communicate with our residents. And moving on to additional value of financial accountability. The delivery of services to the citizens of the RM St. Clements relies significantly on property taxes as the main source of revenue, being 64%. The other 36% of the revenue of the municipality is made up of business taxes, utilities, fees, grants, and reserves. Excuse me, with targeted sustainable growth and managing costs for the ratepayers, it'll be important to concentrate on other sources of revenue and reduce reliance on property taxes. This year, in speaking to the revenues, this year, this has been, there was a slight error in the original plan that was submitted. This is the corrected version. So what we show as the number of transfer from accumulated surplus and reserves is 4,172,374.51. The original one showed 4 million, and it was a typo, and it was 4,072,374. It was short by 100,000. There's a revenue and an expense that match that. So I wanted to speak to a few items in here. One is what we have is the actual for the 2020 budget, as well as the 2021 and 2022 budget. This goes to show the revenue that was generated as a total and the total municipal revenue that we received. And what you'll notice is that there was an increase in the financial plan for the revenues for 2020. And that increase, it was outlined in the financial plan outline. That increase in revenue is specifically shown here in the actuals at $6 million from what was originally anticipated. That $6 million is specifically speaking to the COVID grant that all municipalities received from the province of Manitoba, of $600,000, $651,000, and it's also speaking to the $2.4 million that we received for the Guns Creek diversion. And so we had received some of that funding in 2020, and so that shows that those are additional revenue. Although many of those were spoken for, we still had significant surpluses last year, and those surpluses were used to populate our reserves. So, and just so that we've identified that with all of these, the municipality continues to submit grant applications for any available programs which will help us to reduce our costs. And increasing the tax levy this year, again, is only 2%. So, in relation to the 2021 expenditures, that's where you'll see the net operating surplus that I mentioned earlier because of the revenues of $3 million, and that was the explanation for that $3 million in extra revenue that was coming in because it didn't match our full actuals of costs, because that was a specific project and it went directly to that specific project, and it was all done by external providers. And so what you can see from here is that there is, and I will be connecting into this a little further. I've noticed that I just had an internet unstable, so I just want to make sure I've got this working properly. But this is part of our financial plan, and it highlights our expenses and it lays it out by the service areas. I go into further detail on this as I go through it later. So what I'll do is just show you this as an example of what the plan outlines. And what we did was we took the information from the expenditures list and then went in to explain how those expenditures are covered as part of the RM. So what you can see is that there's a total basic expenditure that's available for the RM. Then what we have is an allowance. So looking at the total basic expenditure, I went and applied that against some analysis. So the first thing we need to understand is the total revenues, or the total expenditures and the revenues that come along. This year, the province has made a commitment of reducing the taxes, as mentioned earlier, by 25%, with another 25% coming next year. With that, what I wanted to talk about was that before we get into the provincial commitment, that will have a significant impact on this slide. But what we can clearly see on this slide is, as the total taxes that are collected on the total tax bill, 58% of that tax is school taxes. 48% is the municipal portion. That is what's collected as a total portion from all sources. But when we take a look at that municipal portion, how does it relate to the overall running of the RM? And so when we take a look at all those services that I identified, some of those services and Council's commitment to creating reserves and other sources and our push towards seeking various grants, they help to create the entire financial pie, or the revenue pie that sits for the RM. So 46% of the taxes that are collected pay for 46% of the overall expenditure for the RM. From that 46%, we're putting money into the reserves. But for this year, we're drawing upon those reserves that we populated in previous years as we continue to, and that drawing from those reserves and transfers generates 22% of our revenue, including there are some additional fees that go in there. Those come in with grants and other fees. That is grants that we receive from other levels of government, and grants we make application on, leveraging some of our dollars, and that generates another 32% of the total funding that's needed this year in order to do our taxes. So how does that relate? Well, this year, as you know, the province made a commitment of 25% of the reduction of the provincial portion of the school tax. That, the province in their budget this year showed the provincial taxes on an average household income of $70,000. That taxes for school taxes, sales tax, all taxes, comes out to approximately $11,976. Some of it is, of course, estimated like sales tax, but they did an analysis on it. In relation to that, we felt that it was important to also recognize what's the difference with the RM, and what services do we provide, and what portion of that is. So taking a look at an average, if you're looking at average income, household income, you can compare that with an average household size, which would be a $300,000 house as an average household size, would generate $1,377 in taxes, municipal portion. That is a slice of the municipal portion. So where does all that money go? Well, that money goes towards transfers to reserves. It goes for government and professional fees, goes for legislation, as you can see, for many of these services that have been laid out, that were identified at the front page of our diagram. We also broke out some of them a little further for clarity purposes. Now, remember, the 1377 is only 46% of the entire budget. So this is going to that entire budget, and there's other funds that are coming in. So in order to have that proper comparison, we wanted to talk about a little bit about what are those expenditures. First is the government professional services. This is the running of the government, running of the RM, all the municipal offices, all the financial services, consulting services, and various other ancillary. Legislative is another component, as you can see, a very sliced component, which is basically running of government itself, which is the legislation, which is running council. The other is assessment and taxation, where we pay to the province of Manitoba for as an expense to be able for them to submit the tax bills for us. And then what we have is fire and protective services. This is direct fire and protective services, a significant portion of our pie, and that's going towards that. Then what we have is health and welfare funding that we provide to the province. As you know, health and welfare are provincial responsibilities, but we do contribute a slight amount towards it. Then what we have is transportation services. This encompasses everything to do with transportation services. Roads, drainage, hard surface, gravel, dust control, all those services that go into this. Then we get into environmental services such as garbage and collection and sewer and water, those types of services. And then when we get into planning, this is our contribution towards the Red River Planning District. Then economic development services, this includes not only just the provision of economic development, but also some of the other components of economic development services where we're providing grants and other things that we give. Then what we have is recreational, cultural. And then what you get into is fiscal, which is capital and grants and debt. So that's the transfer and the capital that we're spending. But that's all coming, majority of that, as I mentioned earlier, is coming from our reserves. And I'm going to speak more to that later. But I wanted to explain this very clearly. A good portion of our budget, council has made a decision that they're putting that into the bank as reserves. And that then is used to pay for the capital. So as we're buying capital equipment for our fire department, for our public works, and those types of scenarios, those transfer from reserves are drawn upon to pay for the fiscal. That will fluctuate. The fiscal services and the transfer to reserves will fluctuate differently over different years, depending on how much money you're putting in the bank and how much you're drawing out. So some years you may need more, and that's where your asset management comes into effect. And so, taking that same pie now and taking a look at it as a direct cost. So here are those costs that add up to that number that I mentioned to you earlier, which was the $18 million total budget to run as an expenditure for the RM. So you see the full budget amount. But if you applied 46%, the taxes that were paid, that would then translate to the percentage of the total. And then comes down to how would that $13.77 be split between each one of those services. So to the average house, it's costing $20.99 to run council. And to be, for all this time and all the services that go along with running council, it costs $105 to run all the government professional services. An interesting part, the larger part of our budgets, which is fire and protective services, $185.31 for the year to have fire service, to have on-demand support for protection. That's cheaper than what I pay today for my alarm monitoring system per year. So then we get into transportation services. $338.55 out of that tax bill goes towards that. If you compare that, that's $338 to get the roads done, snow clearing, dust control, cleaning in the spring, drainage, all the works that go along in our entire public works falls into that $338. Environmental services, again, running that is about $115. That's all our transfer stations, our lagoon, and our treatment plants, and the various lagoons, or the 2 lagoons we have. The economic development services, as an example, or and as you can see, a good portion is fiscal services. So this is capital, grants, and debt. So this is the transfers that go along in here. Again, this is the most important part, because council is continue to show fiscal prudency, so which means we continue to do cash to capital when we're buying capital purchases. So you're using your savings as opposed to relying on borrowing to buy many of the capital items outside of various strategic infrastructure projects, which all municipalities tend to borrow for. And so that further explains the project. So to further illustrate that, this is the 2021 capital items. And as you can see in here, what we have is a list of the various capital purchases that are going to be occurring this year that we show in our financial plan. And what I want to draw to your attention is all of them, all our capital purchases from protective services, to our Ludwig Bridge, to our Baconia Well, to boat launches, to graders, to fire equipment such as, you know, a $250,000 pumper truck for the fire department. All of those are being completely borne by reserves. That's significant. So that there is no additional borrowing. So you're buying that capital through cash to capital. So you've done the savings and then bought the capital purchases as you need. So what are our borrowing? Our borrowing is specifically the South St. Clements Utility Works, which is the $3.5 million, which is the Henderson Sewer Project, which is bringing in the twin force mains from Lockport to the East Selkirk Lagoon, the East Selkirk water treatment plant softener and truck fill, which is a $4 million project and our $2 million share. The South St. Clements Recreation Center has been identified as the $2 million that we need to move forward on this. And that's our revised capital, and it's going to be done through borrowing. The Water Control Works, which is the 1.152, which is the remaining funds that are needed to finish up the land drainage projects that were identified back in 2018, 19, and 20 that you've completed this year, which is a multi-year project, and that's why it needed a large capital project. There are other small previous borrowings, but it gives you an idea. These are the most recent, the most important borrowings we're doing, and specifically, we're going to be the reason I'm showing these are that we're going to be updating the South St. Clements Recreation to $2 million from the $4 million that we originally had it at, and the Water Control Works, which is the drainage, and that was the $3.5 million to 1.525. So we've been able to reduce that because of those grants that I mentioned earlier. We received those grants, and then we were able to refocus our borrowing. So we were able to take 4.3 and leverage and turn it into $5.5 million in borrowing, and end up with the same amount of payments, and I'll talk about that in a second. So the other, further to talk about that, so we're reducing our St. Clements Rec facility by $2.8 million. We're reducing 178. So the narrow fire department expansion last year was complete, and it came in under budget. Because of that, we were able to reduce. Not only that, we were able to get at a lower interest rate, and so our payments are much lower than that were predicted when the borrowing first was established. And as opposed to the Water Control Works, we're also reducing that down to 1.525 because of the Guns Creek Diversion Grant, which was funded as part of that project, as well as the site works for the St. Clements Rec facility was built into that. Then we have the two borrowings of the Henderson, or for the East Selkirk Water Treatment Plant upgrade and softener, as well as the truck fill for $3.5 million, and the South St. Clements Utility Works, which is the Henderson Sewer Project for, sorry, those two should be flipped around, $2 million and $3.5. I apologize for that error. But when we talk about borrowing, there's always a question, well, why are you getting into this type of borrowing? So we need to understand how is debt funded? And so debt is not all funded through general taxation. So depending on the projects you have, general taxation only pays for 31% of that debt. The other part, so that's the debt payments, not the total amount of borrowing, but what the debt payments are on a 20-year borrowing cycle. And then some of that comes from gas tax, 34%, which is related to usually a lot of major infrastructure projects. Utility rates pay for their own debt servicing of 12%. Then what we have is LID, which is Local Improvement Districts taxation, which is taxation that is done at a local level to support that particular area, like what you would have in Old River Road when the LID was established there for the sewer project, or in East Selkirk when the LID was established here for the sewer and water projects. And so, as well as what you have in Sunset Bay Estates, as an example. So, but along with understanding what portion of the debt is, where is your debt ceiling? How are you managing your debt? So there are always two components to your debt. Your debt capacity and your debt payment capacity. Debt capacity is the total amount of money that you're capable of borrowing. That's based on your income. Similar to the bank will do on an individual. And that's all governed by provincial legislation. So every municipality, whether it's the Arm of St. Clements, or whether it's the city of Selkirk or the city of Winnipeg, they all have to function under that same debt policy. Not all are in the same position. What you can see is red is bad, good, green is good. This year we're in very good position. In this situation, what the province's municipal board says is that of the total debt that you can borrow, it'll be based on your entire assessment base. So as your assessment base increases, it gives you more capacity. But on the total assessment base, all you can rely on is 7% of that base. And as a total debt that you can borrow. We are at 4.37 of that debt capacity, meaning that over $32 million of that is available. Then what it is it also takes a look at the revenue coming in. What's your income? So what's your assets, which is all the properties that are and the tax base you have, and then the other is what's your revenue? What are you generating in taxes? And what we're generating in taxes, we're allowed to borrow up to 20% of the total of that. And so right now we have 12.16 available, which totals to $2.3 million in payments, which means the most important thing, because of the proper fiscal management that this council has done in the last few years, you are able to change that debt capacity and debt ceiling. And now, because of relying heavily on your own reserves to pay for capital projects, you have lots of room to be able to do debt if needed. But council has been completely consistent with that. So going further from that, I wanted to talk a little bit about the strategic plan core strategies. Along with the strategic plan, the administration worked with council on establishing what are some of the core strategies that support those goals and the vision and the direction that has been established by council. So the first thing, establish an asset management plan. This plan commits to that. It puts additional funds into going forward with the asset management plan and the resources to be able to deliver on that. It also talks about how to secure grants for sewer. We have continued to work towards securing grants, and when monies weren't available or not foreseen in coming in anytime soon, council made the decision to go out and borrow this year to make sure that we were able to deliver on the sewer project, and then made grants to another funding source, as opposed to not getting something from the Canada Infrastructure Fund. We decided to go through to the Manitoba Water Services Board and seek grants through there. $3.5 million have been devoted this year towards the sewer project, which means the sewer project gets started this year, hopefully to complete this year. Bring solid waste costs in line with established norms. This council made that decision and went and looked at the costs, and then after 12 years of freezes, introduced modest increases to bring those into standard norms and to start looking at new ways of doing solid waste, along with increasing various solid waste services. Implement cost recovery and user fee strategy for non-essential services. That's exactly what part of that was, to introduce those fees to say it goes by user fees. So what you've introduced is solid waste services in the south end of the RM, where you've got garbage collection, curbside garbage collection, that's paid by user fees. Where you have other fees, other places, you're paid by user fees. Remove barriers to sustainable growth and related future expansion of tax base. What's the most important thing to do that? With that, water and sewer lines. Your underground services are important to continued growth, especially in some areas. Not only have you made a commitment to that, council has also made a commitment to bringing in, to partnering with the province of Manitoba to see if we can link in with the sewer systems for Grand Marais. Council has also made a commitment to continue to expand on the water and the water treatment plant. So not only has the water treatment plant been upgraded to provide softening, soft water, and better potable water for our residents, but it's also being expanded to be ready for 25 to 30 years in the future, taking into consideration growth for all of the municipalities south of East Selkirk. So that water treatment plant will be designed to be capable to support all of that function of the East Selkirk and below, all the way to Lockport and further if necessary in the future. All that growth will be coming in the next 20 to 25 years. You're looking to the future, and council has made that decision. Slow and steady tax increases was a strategy identified. That's what you've done. Every year you said we wouldn't go higher than 2%. You've committed to that, you've stayed. Strengthening the planning process. Continue to work closely with the Winnipeg Metro region. Continue to work with the province of Manitoba, and continue to review our plans, our zoning bylaws, and look at amendments and do those things as we need as we move forward. And to also, you delivered a development plan in your term, a development plan that sets the direction for the next 20 years. Proactively identify attractive opportunities to increase housing options. Various opportunities have been expanded in here. Tax incentives have been provided for housing in service areas. And we continue to look at other ways of proactively attracting housing, as well as putting our economic development forces towards that. Use incentives to attract the right kind of development. That's what those incentives are, as well as additional incentives. Council is open to those, and we've been looking at working on those. With partners, develop and implement recreation promotion strategy. As I explained earlier, we've covered that. Enhance and promote water access. This year, we're looking at implementing a non-motorized boat launch, as well as a motorized boat launch in places that we can deliver. Increase the capacity within the RM for year-round programming for all ages, physical space, staff. Thank you very much. Increase that for the year-round programs for all ages. And as you can see, the RM has hired a recreational manager, as well as it's added lots of capacity within the RM. We're adding in more trails. We're concentrating on more development and understanding, as we're learning from this COVID, what are the priorities that everyone has. And then communicate strategy to accompany all goal areas. That's what our financial plan is doing. That's what the financial plan outline, which is the very first time council has delivered on an outline of the financial plan to see what things we're delivering on. So, to summarize, what are some of these highlights? In 2021, council has continued to reduce future risks related to infrastructure costs by devoting 1 mill rate directly towards roads. That equals to $784,675 this year. That's significant because that is what goes to pay cash to capital. Pays for that road construction. We're doing all our road construction through reserves. That's what goes into the reserves. Excuse me, stabilize the reserves from year-end surpluses to provide sufficient funds for capital projects in 2021. So in 2020, when council saw $870,000 in surpluses, they were able to put those into reserves, which softened the ability to be able to deliver on all the services this year, and then to be able to reallocate those services to other things, as you'll see as I come forward. So road construction, $2.4 million is going towards that this year. Public works equipment purchases, all being done by reserves, $541,000 is going towards that. We've identified the Colville sidewalk and the Fuller Road construction that should be started this year, and that's $600,000. We're looking at Ludwig Bridge repairs of $200,000. We're looking at fire equipment purchases of $393,000, although $155,000 of that is coming from our partnership with the RM of Alexander, so that we're looking at it at a regional level. Environmental waste and site improvements of $155,000. Protective services, another $35,000. All these are commitments that council is making, and these are all coming from our reserves. And so that's what was able to be accomplished because of the reserve management. Support recreation in the RM, which means We're supporting the recreation in the RM this budget with $260,000 in active transportation and trails. 200,000 of that towards active transportation in Lockport, with 60,000 of that going towards active transportation in trails in East Selkirk, Grand Marais, and Grand Marais. Two spots in Grand Marais and one in East Selkirk. And another 60,000 on community recreational projects in Gull Lake, in Grand Marais, in East Selkirk. Construction of a boat launch of $80,000 in just north of East Selkirk. Support of the business community, and I apologize for the double commas there, $50,000 toward development of biz zones. This year we're looking at focusing on the 2 biz zones, so we're able to take the funds that we were able to take from our reserves and be able to put that towards the appropriate funds. So now what this is going to be is development of biz zones. We'll establish those biz zones by bylaw, and then be able to then, this will be in support of the businesses to provide them a helping hand by saying, we will provide matching funds as grants related to those biz zones in that biz area, what they would like to see. So this is not what we're telling them to do, but what would they like to see? And when they come with the funds, we contribute our share as part of it. There will be some rules that we would work out together with the business as we establish those biz zones. The other is commitment to community and volunteer groups. This RM has a long-standing tradition of community and community groups and volunteerism. This budget supports that through $193,000 in grants to support those groups. As mentioned, repurposing this year, $4.3 million of previous borrowing with the borrowing of $5.5 million for the new projects, the sewer and the water projects. That, and if we're able to leverage, would even give us greater flexibility. But that, the most critical part of that is we've leveraged 4.3 of previous borrowing authority and went to new borrowing authority of $5.5 million, but our payments are less than they would have been at the $4.3 million of borrowing authority. Because that was at 4% and we were able to get 2.83% financing, and we took advantage of it. Fiscal and cash flow management, as mentioned earlier, to reduce our reliance, so the money that you're paying interest on short-term borrowing is no longer necessary because of good fiscal management. Implement a 3-year budgeting strategy this year. Council established a 3-year budgeting strategy and kept expenses at 2020 levels. That's very important for Council to recognize and for our citizens, ratepayers to recognize the 3 years of freezes in our expenses. Implement as well, except for the strategic infrastructure projects, all capital projects are funded through reserve accounts. And the creation of a general purpose reserve to address financial resiliency. So that's the other part of this, is that we're also committing to financial resiliency, and in order to do that, a new reserve has been established that will allow Council to deal with unknown and unforeseen circumstances in the budget year, so that what this Council is not only establishing a 3-year budget that it's preparing for the next Council, but it's also providing tools to be able to deal with those types of scenarios as we move to the future. And that, Council, is my presentation for our financial plan for this year. And
Thank you very much, Mr. Cieo.
Madam Mayor, we did receive one letter today, and that was provided with some questions. I do notice that the person's, Mr. Freres, is also logged in, but what I've told him is that I'll read out his questions and answer them on the public agenda, and then we'll provide him with written comments after, as we received them this afternoon, and I just didn't have enough time to deal with those questions in advance. But I will read his complete letter, and then I will answer each question afterwards. So, thank you for taking the time to speak with me today, and this was to Shannon As an owner of the Lockport Grocery and chair of the Lockport Community Development Corporation, I am passionate about the future of Lockport and its community. Thusly, I have some questions regarding the 2021 financial plan from the RMSA Comets. As the municipality continues to benefit from the development of Lockport, River Creek Estates condo development, and other upcoming mixed-use, multi-residential and commercial business expansion, which zoning is already in place for, I respectfully question how the municipality and surrounding area can benefit from further development of Lockport. With recent expenditures in other communities such as Grand Beach and East Selkirk, I ask if council will take Lockport into consideration for future development with the SALD bridge deck replacement, which is the St. Andrews Lock and Dam bridge deck replacement project, slated to start late summer of 2021, which will have a huge impact on the businesses and community of Lockport. These are concerning questions I have. What funds are being allocated to assist in enhancing further business and community development of Lockport? 1. 2. What plans, monies allocated are in place to beautify Lockport, as in sidewalks, permanent crosswalk, and complementary greenery? What are the plans, monies dedicated for Lockport to, expand active transportation and join the Great Trail? What plans, monies are allocated are there to work on previous province to restore and develop the Kennewasin Museum and the Lockport Provincial Heritage Park? What plans, monies allocated are in place to work with the province for the development, redesigning the intersection of Highway 44 and Henderson Highway? And what plans, monies are allocated to commit contingency of proper water treatment and sewer facilities for Lockport as the area of business community continues to grow and develop? I look forward to hearing a response to all of the above queries with high hopes that the RMSA Comets has Lockport on its mind and close to heart. Well, Mr. Ferris, I can tell you that my understanding is the council has Lockport in its mind and close to heart. To address that, first question, what funds are being allocated to assist enhancing further business and community development of Lockport? As mentioned in my presentation, we have committed to putting in $50,000 for developing of biz zones. That's to help highlight what are some of the things that need to be done as part of the community, working with the community in doing that development, as well as looking at providing services to that community. So along with that is the sidewalk, which I'll cover in question 2. So what you're asking there is what plans, monies allocated are in place to beautify Lockport, as in sidewalk, permanent crosswalk, and complementary greenery. The council was keenly aware that the St. Andrews Lock and Dam Bridge was to be constructed, as well as there was now construction occurring that was going to be impacting the business with the Henderson and Highway 44 intersection review by Manitoba Infrastructure and possibly some construction. In order to minimize that impact, what council felt was important was to be able to put some funding towards doing the sidewalk works at the same time, whereby having the least amount of impact on the community, but also to be able to put some level of commitment for putting in an active transportation walk. We'll be also doing studies starting this spring, working with the RM of St. Andrews, because we're looking at both sides of the bridge and linking the trails and developing a strategy that will link the trails from the Great Trail along with the active transportation in Selkirk, or Lockport, and then off onto through over the bridge, through the trails, and any active transportation in the St. Andrews, connecting to the rest of all the way into Selkirk if necessary. And so our intent is that sidewalk should be constructed at the same time and hopefully takes into design. The funding that's for the biz zones will help to also further enhance in that area so that we can create the environment. We of course will be working closely with the province of Manitoba when it comes to crossing provincial highways and making sure that we adhere to provincial regulations when it comes to that. So what plans and monies are allocated to restore and develop the Kennewasin Museum and Lockport Provincial Heritage Park? These are top of mind. I've been working closely and I've been identifying our Economic Development Officer, Gary Marshall, who's been actively looking, but as you know, that requires bringing businesses, sometimes bringing various groups together to come and take a look at what can be done. We've been approaching our First Nations to see if they're interested in doing some development. We're looking at approaching the province of Manitoba. We're looking at approaching developers to see if they can. But in order to do that, there are other things that need to happen. Development is looking for services. They need certain levels of services to produce the level of density that's needed to provide that level of investment in that area. So we're looking at that, and that's what I'll go to as to the next item. If you don't mind, what I'll do is I'll jump to number 6 and then I'll deal with number 5 for you. So what the number 6 is what monies are allocated to commit to continuation of proper water treatment, sewer facilities for Lockport area and the business community continues to grow and develop. Completely agree, that was recognized. That's why council decided they needed to borrow the money this year and make sure that we do our sewer project all the way from the edges of our south end of our community, which is right from the boundary with East St. Paul, and run twin sewer mains and go all the way to our East Selkirk Lagoon. That allows us to open up significant capacity for providing sanitary sewer services to the area, including the Lockport Business District area. That will also allow us to further expand and then eventually decommission the Lockport wastewater treatment plant, which allows us to repurpose that area as we need to. All that sewage capacity will move over to the East Selkirk Lagoon. Along with that, this year we're also doing an upgrade to our water treatment plant. That was, when that upgrade started, we worked with Manitoba Water Services Board to make sure that what designs what we did this year were to make sure that it was designed to be 25 to 30 years in the future that this plant could service. And it was to service all, so we took into population growth estimates in Lockport, anticipating for possibly high density condos like the condos that are already existing, with maybe with considerably more businesses possibility. We also looked at partnering with St. Andrews to see if we can then provide the water across the river to the other side, so that we can encourage the development of that entire destination location of Lockport. We're also, and that water, so the opportunity now is to take a look at providing a water line at the same time for as we're providing our sewer. So this, at the last council meeting, council adopted a resolution requesting Manitoba Water Services Board for financial and technical assistance to take a look at providing a water line from East Selkirk to Lockport, specifically to help support that, so that we'll have quality, soft water. And that's very rare in RRMs to have that level of quality, soft water. On top of that, so that deals with some of the sewer and water services. The reason being why everything is coming to East Selkirk, because a lagoon was designed that is designed to be expandable. And as it gets expanded, it can accommodate significant more growth. It can take us to the next 15, 20, 30 years into the future easily and service all that land. And so that's the intent there. So getting back to your question 5 was with what plan and monies are allocated in place to work with the province for the development and redesign of the intersection of Highway 2044 and the Henderson Highway. As you know, this is a provincial project. We will be, of course, another participant just like the business community. We will, of course, cooperate well with Manitoba Infrastructure, and then we will be looking at putting our active transportation, our crossing, bringing people from our south end of our community to be able to cross those highways, to be able to get across and then utilize the amenities on both sides of Highway 44 in the Lockport Business District, as well as to be able to cross that bridge and connect to other services. So what this should do is, this active transportation should provide us a proper, much more usable sidewalk than what exists there today. And that's our intent. So I hope I've answered your questions, Mr. Ferris. But if you have any further questions, since you did register and send out those questions. We're here to answer those.
I think the council for taking the time to talk to me today. I appreciate your diligence, and I feel like everyone knows.
I'm sorry, Mr. Ferris, you didn't connect very well. We only got every second word. We have a bad connection, I'm sorry.
Well, you're doing a good job.
Well, that sounds better. Can you perhaps repeat yourself, Mr. Ferris? Because when you were a little closer, we got every word. So do you want to just try again?
I'm sorry, I'm out on an internet degree.
No. Okay, well,
Fortunately, go ahead, Madam Mayor.
thank you for joining us this evening, and as our CAO, Mr. Joshi, said, if you have any further questions or want to speak to anybody, give him a call, give your counselors a call, give myself a call, and we are looking out for the Lockport community.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Okay, Madam Mayor, I think that is all the questions that we had identified in this project, or in this presentation.
Okay, thank you for that. And if there are no further questions or people joining us this evening, I will then say that the meeting is, our financial plan hearing is complete for this evening.
Thank you. The meeting has adjourned.
That is correct. We have adjourned the meeting.
Okay, let me. do
Yes.
that. So 8:09?
Yep, thank you.
Looks like everybody's left. Oh, we had one chat.
Oh,
Oh, did
You're
we?
breaking up on your internet, so it looks like our internet connection is also causing some problems.
oh.